if this was three-dimensional or animated, you know, you could just see these two spheres like merging and sort of engulfing each other. And it seems very romantic, but that's actually really unhealthy. And that's what is, because what happens is the me and the you take their pleasure and joy from the us to the degree that they lose their sense of self. So in other words, in order for me to be happy, we need to be happy. So you're permanently trying to assess what's going on in the we, because gosh, if that we isn't looking good, then or feeling good, then I can't be happy.
Hi, I'm Yolanda, and this is The Curious Exchange, a live interactive event in Cape Town where we have conversations that can support people in living happier, healthier, more conscious lives, with experts who are really passionate about their topics. This is the online edition so that the wisdom that our speakers share can reach a broader audience. In this edition, we feature Shelley Lewin. She's a leadership and relationship coach. She'll be talking to us about compatibility and how singles and couples can really be their own relationship architect. Let's dive in. So just a very brief introduction to Shelley, because I can definitely not do it justice, but she has a string of qualifications, including being an accredited, being accredited as in applied psychology, in Enneagram. She's an accredited Enneagram coach, NLP. She works with clients across the world, leadership also, as well as relationship work. She's the author of Uncomplicated Love, which we are giving, I'll talk about the giveaways in a second, but that I believe was a bestseller at some point for a while, so very well done on that. Yeah, and she comes with over 20 years experience.
Yeah.
You know, so this lady really, she knows her stuff, and we are so fortunate to have you. Thank you so much. And she's also been married for 20 years. So that, happily, I say mostly, we're talking about relationships here, and it's not necessarily straight or heterosexual or homosexual. It's any relationship. So keep that in mind. This really applies to any kind of relationship, any sexual orientation. I'm sure what she will also touch on is the masculine and the feminine, as Volker has. This is a conversation for everyone. And it's also for singles as well as couples. So, all right, now I've definitely said enough.
Thank you.
Let's start off with, because I also questioned this when I saw that you call yourself a relationship coach. How is that different to a relationship counselor? And I believe you were a counselor, and then you saw the light.
Yes, I did. So I would say that the biggest difference is when you go to a counselor or therapist, you're talking about generally the problem in the past and what happened in the past and who did what and he said and she did. And the problem is that the solutions don't live in the past. They live in the present and in the future. And so I found that talk therapy was very limiting. And Volker gave the most perfect example this evening about how you don't even know that you're not loving, that you don't have capacity for vulnerability. And there's only so much that talking can do. And that actually it's an embodied experience. You actually need to go inside. And a lot of the time it's through what is known as somatic work. So somatic work is when you go into your body and your mind keeps you stuck up here. And so I found that the talk therapy wasn't enough, that we are psychological beings, yes, but we're also social beings, we're energetic beings, and so and emotional beings. So all of these dimensions to us are limited with a talk conversation. And for me, I realized that I wasn't getting where I wanted to go with a therapeutic type of conversation. And I realized that a coaching conversation is really future-oriented, solution-oriented. And so the solution lies in the future. So in some ways, I describe it as, if this is where you are now, and this is where you want to be, what is the change that needs to happen to get you to this place? And how do you each need to be, what do you each need to be doing differently to get you to this place? So if this is the ideal relationship that you're looking for and where you are now, the problem can explain it. It's not going to help you to get where you want to go. And so it's through those types of conversations that you can then build what you want. So the idea of the relationship architect is that you build the relationship you want and you each become your own architect, rather than a therapeutic approach, which is where you're trying to heal something that's broken.
Well put. Wow, sure. And I love what you. Yeah, this is such a rich topic. Yeah, I love how you speak about. You know, when I first heard your title, Uncomplicated Love. You know, I was like, okay, does that mean uncomplicated relationship? Is there a difference between relationship and love? And I kind of like toiled with that. And then I actually saw on your website, you say, people are the complicated elements. It's the relation, is that right?
Yes, so people are complicated and relationships are not. And what I mean by that is,
that's quite a statement, you know. I mean, it's,
sure. Yeah. And so actually my book is centered around a quote by the poet Rumi, and that he says that your task is not to seek for love. Your task is to find and seek all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it, that you have to protect yourself from it. And so the idea is that we all have difficulty with that vulnerability, and that those layers need to be peeled, and that makes us very complicated people because we're wired, our brains are trying to keep us safe for survival. And relationships present one of the biggest opportunities for growth, because so relationships are your growth guru, really. And so it's in the relationship, it's a dynamic that's happening between the two of us. And sorry, I did bring a picture against standard protocol.
Yeah. I was like, for her, we don't do PowerPoints and things, but for her, I'll allow it, And it's beautiful. I think it adds like an ambiance of what we're dealing with here, I mean, I'm sure you can see it from the back because it's so big. I love it.
Look, sorry, for me,
it helps.
Everything is around this blueprint. So part of being the architect is to understand what is the blueprint of a relationship. So the idea is, if I can just share with you quickly, is that 1 + 1 = 3, is that there's a you and there's a me. And when you put the you and the me together, this third entity is created. That third entity is known as us, or the space between us. And when I'm working with couples, I become the voice of us. So I'm listening for each person is either contributing or contaminating the us space. Each person is either helping or hindering the us space. Each person is either nourishing or neglecting the us space. And so what happens is when you focus on what's happening in this us space, I don't need to take sides. Each person is bringing their complicated, complex childhood psychological wounds, and it's showing up in the us space because your relationships are mirrors, and it's going to just reflect back to you whatever stuff you haven't healed inside. And so when I'm working, I'm helping the couple to figure out what each of them need to face and own and heal. Because what you don't transform, you transfer.
Yeah, beautiful, yeah.
So everything that you've heard here this evening echoes exactly into the work that I'm doing. And so, sorry, that was a long way around to say that the people are complicated, but there's very simple dynamics really that show up in this us space, that when you understand what those dynamics are that you're looking for, that it can be the work is within you. It's the healing that each person needs to do. The more whole and healed and sovereign each person is, the more health there is in the relationship.
Beautiful. I remember you saying at Retreat Yourself, just as one example, that, if you describe what are the qualities of the relationship that you want in the us, like you just said, okay, is what you're doing then contributing or contaminating that quality?
Yes.
Or not? It's I don't know, for me personally, it felt like a light bulb that went on, that it really simplifies the thing that is a relationship, that structure, that is not individual, it's relating with someone else. And I'm sure a lot of this comes to play with your leadership work as well.
Yes.
It's not just romantic relationships.
No, absolutely. And so whether you're working in pair bonds, couples, or colleagues, peers, any partnership, if I was to take the pair and say, tell me what you want this to look like, and we get rich detail of what it is that this is going to look like. People come up with these lists of extraordinary things of what's going to be happening in that us space. And then I go, great. Now, what do you need to be doing and who do you need to become? So you want trust here. Great. Are you trustworthy? Do you have integrity? You want powerful, deep, meaningful conversations. Well, are you able to go there? So it all just gets back to mirrored to who do I need to become? How do I need to speak? What do I need to do in order for that to show up in the us space?
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Where, if I can jump to just, you've worked with so many couples. What do you think, or what have you seen are some of the biggest mistakes, most common mistakes that people make that don't create that relationship that they actually truly want?
Okay. So if I can just say that what I've discovered is that love is really an emergence, okay? It emerges when there are three domains that are present. So the first is compatibility, the second is intimacy, and the third is partnership. And I'm going to take you through each of those. And when you talk about mistakes, so compatibility is almost like the most crucial. So I want you to think of any two things that get joined together. When you blend any two things, there's going to be one of three responses. Either both of those things become better as a result of that. Like when you think of food and wine pairing, there are professional sommeliers who tell you when you eat this food, you must have it with this wine. Both of those flavors become more full and they're bigger, they're expanded as a result of that union. Okay, so that's the one thing that can happen when you blend two things, or it's neutral. Neither really, it's not much happens. Neither of us are affected by it. Or you get something which is chaotic, but in this case, a chaotic merging is like when you put Mentos with Coca-Cola. It creates this fusion and this explosion. It can be explosive. And so when you blend two things, not everything is going to blend well together.
Yeah.
And the way that you would know whether you're compatible is, does this person bring out the best in me or the worst in me? Can I be myself? Can I be my full, authentic self? And if you can be your full, authentic self and that person brings out the best in you, because you can love someone who brings out the best in you and you can love someone who brings out the worst in you.
Yeah.
So compatibility from a health, we're talking about this being a healthy space, is that we're aligned. I can be myself, and this person brings out the best in me. And the problem is, and the mistake people make, is that in order to know if someone's compatible with you, you need to, the me needs to know, they need to know themselves, what does bring out the best and the worst in me, what pushes my buttons, where are my wounds, what pushes my buttons, and as well as that is what can I not tolerate? So I'm going to bring it to life a little bit, okay? So I'm going to give you an example. So I had, in my childhood wounding, I grew up in a home where I felt very unsafe. I had a father who drank way too much, and I noticed that after several beers and then brandy and then this and then that it became a very abusive home. So as an adult, I realized every time I went out with someone that drank alcohol, I was on edge. I could never relax. And I'd be so, you've had a drink, you've had two now. Are you going to have a third one? Why would you have a third one? You know, do you really need? So I became a fishwife. I was like, and what was happening is that it just seemed to get worse and worse and worse. And I was getting more and more angst and angry with this person who was drinking. And people would say, Shelley, you need therapy. You can't carry on like that. You know, you're going to destroy all your relationships if you continue that way. And what I realized was that actually I would probably be better off, I don't have a problem with someone drinking. I have a problem being in a relationship with someone that drinks. That for me, I don't feel safe. So I'm not compatible with someone who drinks. I don't drink. It's a life choice that I've made. And that my compatibility would be someone who's also chooses a life of sobriety. So that's what I mean by a good fit. It's a problem you can't solve if I'm now with someone that drinks and I don't drink. Every time the drink comes out, we're just going to...
It's a deal breaker.
Correct. So it becomes a deal breaker. And other deal breakers that I see all the time is, say, if your identity, if you want to be a parent one day, and parenthood is important to you, you want to have a child, and then you meet someone who doesn't want to have a child, who doesn't, parenting is not an aspect that they want to experience in life, then it becomes, you have to change the other person.
Yeah.
So I would need to change the other person in order for the relationship to work.
Yeah.
So do you see what I mean? So this idea of compatibility is that I can be me and you can be you, and there's harmony between us. So it's not differences that are the problem, it's differences that cause disharmony that is the problem, and that I can't feel safe and be myself. So that's compatibility. So that's
beautiful. Yes, I mean, I was completely shocked that a couple that I knew, beautiful love between them, like gorgeous and just so deep and authentic, and they were like so amazing together. And then they split because he was essentially a country boy. He wanted to be in the country.
Yes.
She was like this beautiful Italian mix, gorgeous woman who wanted to be in Milan.
Oh, in the city.
In the city.
Cities,
in the
urban,
city.
yeah.
And they split because of that. And I was like, what is the world coming to, that even a couple like that, and they were not compatible with where they were happy.
Yes.
He is happy in the country and she is happy in the city.
So when you have to sacrifice yourself and who you want to be and become in the world in order to make the relationship work, you're incompatible. And so that's this idea of trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You know, you've got to change because I need you to change so that I can live the life I want to live or become the person I want to become. So there's that incompatibility.
But then how do we, you know, it's so critical then to figure this out in the very beginning. So, I mean, for everyone who's, I mean, you know.
It helps. which is partly...
Is there a checklist? I mean,
Well,
is there a checklist
no,
that we
I would
should...
say that that's probably why a lot of the time, you'll go through multiple relationships because you are learning about your deal breakers.
Yeah.
So when a relationship ends, you actually discover, oh, that's a deal breaker of mine. So in the rubble of the relationship that's ended, there's all these nuggets that you can discover. Oh, that was the thing I wasn't willing to compromise on. Oh, that's the thing that was intolerable for me. So that's just the one aspect, is this compatibility. The intimacy piece is that we aren't able or willing to be vulnerable. You've had a lot of conversation about that today already, but absolutely, if you cannot be vulnerable, so in order for intimacy to happen between us, I need to be willing and able to be vulnerable. And the degree to which I can show up in the relationship is the degree to which I've healed my childhood wounds. So the more wounds you have, the more unsafe you feel in a relationship. And generally what happens in intimacy is that each person is either going to have the terror. So when we talk about childhood wounds shows up in relationships as something called attachment styles, if you've ever heard of attachment styles. So an attachment style is, do you feel safe and secure in a relationship or insecure in a relationship? So an insecure attachment style, you'll have one of two responses. So if you didn't feel safe as a child growing up, if intimacy if your parents weren't available and be there for you as a child, you're going to either have the terror of being abandoned as an adult. Okay, so when you experience the terror of being abandoned, you clingy, you needy, you have this anxious attachment. So if you're trying to pull the other person close to you all the time, where are you going? When are you coming back? How long? You become like a surveillance officer around, where are you? When are you coming back? How long are you going to be? I need you to be around because I'm fearful I'm going to be abandoned. Or you have the opposite, the terror of being engulfed, which is, I'm fiercely independent, I don't need you. So in other words, I push you away because my attachment style is avoidant. So I'm keeping you at arm's length because it doesn't feel safe. So I'll dip my toe into intimacy, but then I push you right back out. So there's this push-pull that happens. And usually people with opposite attachment styles are very attracted to each other. So you have one that's pulling and one that's pushing.
Recipe for disaster, yeah.
Yes, so that is the intimacy challenges. If you aren't aware of your attachment style and how that is, I mean, these are all words. The thing that I love is that these are even parts of conversations socially now, understanding your attachment style. This was reserved for the few that would spend years in therapy. So all that's happening, and comes back to that coaching, is I'm just trying to see, are we working with two people who's doing the pushing, who's doing the pulling, and what is this push-pull dance that happens? So that's the intimacy piece. And then the partnership piece is just the skills. And it's the skills to communicate effectively. It's, you're in a partnership at the end of the day. And so if you're in a partnership, there's best practices in the world, for engaging, whether you're at work or at home, how to communicate effectively, asking for what you want, being trustworthy, being accountable. These are all partnership skills. And the good thing is you can learn those. That's the easiest one.
That's the good news. That's the good news.
Yeah, the good news is that's the easy solve, that one. So when I talk about uncomplicated love, it's really just around understanding compatibility, partnership, and intimacy, and the journey that you need to take as an individual. So most of the book is around what is the work that you need to do as an individual in order for this to show up in the us space.
Beautiful, sure.
Does that make sense?
Yes, as that landed, yes.
how does that work out? If you're really compatible on some levels, but perhaps incompatible on some levels, like how do you know which is a deal breaker compatibility?
Okay, so I would say the difference is there's what I would call a requirement and a need and a nice to have. So, a nice to have is humor. I mean, that's who doesn't love a humorous person, okay? But a requirement is I cannot be myself and I cannot function the way I want to in the world if that thing isn't present. So generally, when I work with people, we look at who are you? What matters to you? What is it that makes you who you are? And if you say, like the example that you gave earlier is, I love being in nature. I must be in nature. I have to be there. How could you expect that person to plonk themselves in Milano and live in, it's like you're asking that person to become someone they don't want to be in order to make the relationship work. So it does seem like there's 8 billion people out there. I can assure you there's way more than even one person who's perfectly compatible with you. Yeah. You just haven't met them yet.
Just repeat those three. I love what you said there. A requirement.
A requirement, a need, and a nice to have.
And a nice to have.
So the requirement is, if you look at your failed relationships or the ones that have ended, there's usually a requirement that wasn't met in that relationship. And then you'll know, oh, that's the thing. And so the idea is, if I was to help you create this list of what this is, you would be, and if I said to you, give me the name of like a famous or someone that we might know who is a celebrity or something, that's your sort of ideal person. Do you have someone that comes to mind?
George Clooney. Funny, attractive.
George Clooney, exactly. So I would say to you, right, so when you look at this list, you bump into George Clooney in the shopping mall, and he is eyes on you, and he comes over to you, and he's like, you are unbelievable. Can I take you out, please? I've got to see you. I've got to meet you. And in your mind, you're thinking, well, great. Let's go for a coffee date. So you go for a coffee date with George Clooney, okay? Exactly. You go to Nespresso, exactly. And whilst you're there, you have this conversation with him. And in the conversation, you're actually trying to ask questions that help you to understand whether he meets some of those basic requirements, okay? And you discover he doesn't. You wouldn't have a second date with him. That's because that's the difference between a requirement and a need, because you would know this is never going to work, even if it's George Clooney.
Oh, what a pity.
That's the idea, is the requirement is you just know it would never work if that requirement isn't met.
But then why do so many of us, myself included, why do so many people walk into a relationship that is definitely not compatible with them?
So we have rose-tinted glasses when we meet. So there's an interesting thing about us as a species, okay? So there's two core emotional drivers in humans. The one is the need to attach, okay? So anthropologically speaking, if we were not in a group, we didn't survive and thrive. So it's in our DNA to bond and connection. So connection is everything for us because it's how we survive and thrive through connection. So you are wired to bond and connect and to attach. So that's a biological need that you have. Okay, so we've got that's playing out. And then we have another emotional need, which is to become our authentic selves. So to become who you are meant to be in the world. You're this exceptional little blueprint, and you go through life evolving and ideally becoming the person you're meant to be, being more authentic, being more yourself. So what happens is when you're younger, your desire to attach is greater, because when you're younger, you also are, as this part of the species, is to procreate and to find a partner and to, either procreate or but just to attach when you're younger. So you're willing to sacrifice your authenticity in order to attach.
Right.
And then you become 40, 30, 40 and 50, and you're like, hell no, I would rather be myself than be in this attached relationship. It's more important for me to be myself than to pretend to be someone I'm not in order to make the relationship work, which is why relationships often will last 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years, because that attachment works when you are raising a family. It helps with the, there's all sorts of conveniences with having the family unit, but then you become more and more and more yourself. And when you become more yourself, sometimes you discover that actually we're not that compatible, actually. So it can happen that way.
I always find it interesting, and I wonder what your input or what your view on this would be, is that so often couples, after they have children, they split. I've got a theory of why that happens. What's your
theory?
Is that they forget each other.
Yes.
And often it's not exclusively women, but I've seen that often women, the intimacy they have with this child takes the place of the intimacy that they desire or need with a husband, but that's one aspect. I think it's very layered. It also just becomes about survival.
Correct.
Keeping these babies and children, and then routine.
When you've got
and
24 hours in a day, and 18
practical.
to 20 of them, this baby that's needing and demanding from you, you have very little left to give anybody else.
Yeah.
So, when you...
What's your professional opinion?
So I think that my sense is that if you think of relationships as sort of like gardens, right? Is that if you have a very young garden that's new and fresh, and you have a drought and it doesn't rain, so you're not watering the relationship, you're not prioritizing it, you're not, if it's a very young garden, it dies. If you have a mature garden, if that love is deep and mature and well, it can survive a drought. So, when you have children, you're both just generally trying to survive and get through, it can be really demanding. Children can be relentless. And so raising children, and so it can very easily, you can disconnect, as you say. You lose sight of the us. You're just focusing on you and your exactly. Yeah. So you disconnect from the us. And hopefully 5 years later, 6, 7 years later, when you sort of come up for air again, your partner is still there. There's enough there to reconnect you.
Beautiful, yeah. Anybody want to add to that, or
And this is very cynical, and I apologize, but I don't think marriage is a workable institution.
Okay.
For the reasons that you've just said, there's so much expectation placed on one person. And my belief is we multi-dimensional beings. So that one person has to meet you on every single one of those dimensions is nigh impossible. So through my experience, you then find different people in your community,
Yes.
so to speak, that
Yeah.
meet you there. Maybe it's
Yes.
intellectual stimulation or, spiritual stimulation, whatever it may be. But that's difficult to navigate in a conventional marriage. And then I suppose my question is, so if compatibility, as you're going through these seasons of your life, your requirements change.
Correct.
If you're all working on yourselves or not, so maybe one partner is and the
Correct.
other isn't, then
That's such a great question.
right, okay, so then these requirements really change. And I think that's what's so difficult to navigate.
So can I just say that what I can hear is a requirement of yours is someone who's also growth-oriented.
Yes.
So can you hear that because you are someone who likes to grow and evolve,
Yeah.
that if you don't have a partner that's growing and evolving with you,
Yeah.
you're going to be growing like that, or you're going to be growing and you outgrow that person.
Yeah.
So you maybe that just was a requirement you didn't know that you had.
Yes, true. I mean, possibly. But I think also in what you're growing in,
Yes.
maybe
So,
vastly different.
Yeah, so each person, the idea is for each person to be sovereign and whole, that you each have your own life, your own friends, your own community, people that inspire you and challenge you, and you don't look to this relationship for everything. That's part of the problem. That would be codependence,
Right.
where you look to the relationship to give you everything. So in this dynamic, this is interdependence, and in this dynamic, you've got all your friends, you've got all the other aspects of you, you've got your career, you've got your spiritual life, intellectual, emotional, social, recreational, vocational, financial. There's all of the stuff that's happening here, and this is what is your partner is there as like your witness in life. It's like they're your friend. They're there to challenge you sometimes, encourage you sometimes, inspire you sometimes to becoming the best version of yourself. So they want you to become your whole, authentic self. And you're there helping each other to do that. It's almost like if I was to say, that to me is the only long-term purpose that a relationship can have. If you have a purpose of a relationship to raise a family, and if that's why you're together, when those kids are 20, well, now what? Because I've just had that. So my son's left home, and this has had to be reconfigured.
Yeah.
So we had to recalibrate and redesign another relationship now, where we're not, it was very much centered around being parents and being available for our child who's now gone, who doesn't need us. And so all that time and attention, we're now looking at each other and we're going, well, what do we want from each other now? Like, what is going to make this really amazing and inspiring for us? So it's kind of I was saying to someone who was sitting here earlier that I feel that in the lifetime of a marriage, you have many relationships within that because you do grow and change and evolve. And so the relationship needs to change and evolve with the two of you. You have to keep redefining it and recalibrating and reimagining and reinventing it. Otherwise, it's stale and boring. As you said, you can't have the same relationship when you're in your 20s as when you are in your 50s. It has to evolve with you. But that's where the conversation of what does it need to look like? What do we want from each other? What would make us want to be here? I had this conversation with someone, and I said, if we have to go and redo our car license, like every 5 years or whatever. I really think that if we had to reapply for our marriage license
Contract.
every 5 years, I think we would behave quite differently because You know, if you want
That's
to,
great. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
either you want to renew and you'll be like, you know, oh my gosh, I hope they choose to renew it. We begin to take this for granted, this partnership, and to me, this is a very sacred union. That's what it's there. It can be. That's the possibility. And that, when it's sacred, it actually expands both people. You become a better person. You can do more. And, you know, that person is there to, like I said, to challenge you, encourage you, and inspire you through this messy, beautiful life. And so there was something that Esther Perel said. If you may have heard of Esther Perel, she's quite a well-known speaker on relationships, and I agree 100% with. She says that your relationships determine the quality of your relationships, determine the quality of your life.
Sure.
So, and she said that's why she does the work that she does. Because the quality of your life can be extraordinary when you have a quality relationship. And it doesn't have to be a romantic one. It can be, you know, but just this connection, it's profound. And so in order to connect deeply, you really need to have gone and done the inner work.
I mean, she also says exactly what you raised, is that it takes a village. Well, it takes a village to raise a child, but
Yes.
we also used to live in villages and not put all that pressure on one person. It's unfair for them to expect one person to stimulate you in all these different ways and be everything. And
that whole old romantic ideal of, you know, where you're obsessed with the person. So you could think of these. If this was three-dimensional or animated, you know, you could just see these two spheres like merging and sort of engulfing each other. And it seems very romantic, but that's actually really unhealthy. And that's what is, because what happens is the me and the you take their pleasure and joy from the us to the degree that they lose their sense of self. So in other words, in order for me to be happy, we need to be happy. So you're permanently trying to assess what's going on in the we, because gosh, if that we isn't looking good, then or feeling good, then I can't be happy. So it's just, it becomes, you know, the happiness is in here. It's in here. And the happier you are, the more sovereign, whole, and healed you are, the more joy and light you can bring into that space.
Any other questions before? Yes.
I suppose it is a question. There's so much emphasis on kind of keeping relationships together. But the fact is that people change, and I think they should, you know, it's a question. I mean, I mean, I've just gone through a divorce and everyone's like, oh, it's terrible. But actually, when I look back, it was the right thing. And we're both happier. And I think that should have less stigma to it. And it should be accepted that people can have different phases in their life, and that we, you know, you change, and sometimes things...
You can grow apart.
Yeah, and I just find that there's a lot of emphasis on kind of as if it's going to be forever, but that's not necessarily always the best idea, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that sometimes the next most loving thing a couple can do is to separate, because... Like I said, you can love someone who brings out the best in you and love someone who brings out the worst in you. And if you're not thriving and flourishing because the relationship is keeping you small or containing you in some way, then love would be to release that person, is to love each other. It doesn't have to be acrimonious. It can be, you know, you love each other because you want them to grow into the person you know they could be, but you're not going to help you can see that you're not helping them to do that.
Yeah. There was another question behind.
Shelley, I'm curious, what happens in a situation where you have two people where there's love and compatibility, but both people have so much healing work to do on themselves that you land in a situation where there's not enough energy and attention going into the relationship because there's so much personal healing that needs to be done. But also that personal healing is then sacrificed because you're trying to put energy and keep the relationship going. But like I said, there's love and compatibility.
Yes.
What do you do?
Yeah, lovely question. So I'm hearing that there's a deep compatibility, which I think is almost your starting, the base that you want to have. And so what I'm just going to give you tell you what I do with couples that are in that, is that I would ask each of them, how much time do you need? Work out how much time you need for your own healing journey. So, you know, what do you think? And it might be that you take some time out from the relationship, but it might be you need 3 months, or where you give each other the space to figure out how much time do you need to focus on yourself. So you're giving each other permission to not prioritize the relationship. And you say, right, I'm going to, because I love you and honor you, I'm going to give you the 3 months you need, or however long you need, whatever you need for you to heal. And then you both get the chance to do that. And then at the end of that healing time, you have another conversation around how are we both feeling now? Like, do we feel like we want to reignite this and focus back on the us and invest? So you basically take your attention to me, and you give each other permission to do that. And then you come back after that period of time and say, do we want to invest in the us again? So
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. Giving each other permission.
yes,
Yeah.
to do. Does that help? Okay.
There was another. Oh, no, there was someone. No, all right. I'll ask a question. You mentioned earlier about how, you know, all these different relationships that one relationship can evolve into. You know, when you meet,
Yes.
it's one thing,
Yes,
and when
yes.
you know, as you evolve, you know, Hollywood paints this picture of, oh, you know, they met, they fell in love, they're happily ever after, and you know, they're as happy and as passionate all the way
Yeah.
through. But we know in reality that's not true. And I love what you say in your work on your website about, as we evolve, we need new skills. And you touched on it earlier. The partnership is the skills and the resources. Can you just expand a little bit on that? You mentioned, obviously
Yeah.
communication and.
So I like to think of relationships, and as with everything in life, is you'll go through cycles. You go through spring, and then summer, and autumn, and winter. And your relationship will have those cycles as well. So there'll be times when you're going through a winter in your relationship. It feels a bit cold and frosty, you know. But if you connect and give each other the space and ask the questions, what's going on? I notice. So instead of taking it personally and attacking the person, is to just get curious. Reflect. I've noticed this. What's going on for you? Are you okay? Is everything all right in your world? You know, and just create. So that would be the partnership, the skill of creating space for collaboration, you know, being collaborative, recognizing compassion, having compassion. There's something going on. What's going on for you? And then you'll find your way back to spring again, you know, and then there'll be, so as I mentioned, you know, there was a recalibration and a reinvention. We went through an autumn and a winter when my son left. And now we're back into spring. It's so exciting because it feels like a brand new relationship again, actually. And you've seen us on the beach.
On the beach.
In the mornings, we have a little ritual. We walk barefoot together on the beach about 6-7 days a week.
Yeah,
So that's our little time to connect and bond and chat. And that little special moment.
Yeah, you're reinventing it. And,
Yeah.
And I love how you, what you also say somewhere on your website or one of your webinars that a lot of your work is really about empowering people before things get,
yes.
get messy,
Yes, yes.
to learn these skills. And so you also work with singles keen to date.
Yes, exactly. So I sort of go through all the seasons, all the phases of a relationship. So if you're single, it's called dating deliberately, and it's around how to become someone for whom a healthy relationship is possible, figuring out what your deal breakers are, learning some of the skills that you're going to need in a partnership, exploring what are your attachment styles. And so there's a lot of work that you can do while you're single to become ready for a relationship. So relationship ready versus relationship needy, which is that, where you're trying to pull.
Yeah.
Or recognizing that you've got the push going, So that's the dating deliberately. Then I work with premarital couples, and that's when you're in the real spring. You presume this bubble is going to last forever. And the honeymoon phase and high levels of oxytocin and dopamine, and, every young newlywed thinks that their relationship's never going to have any issues. And then that's also a good time to work out what are the skills. So we work with Enneagram, we look at all the different, what are the dynamics that are likely to play out? What is it you're wanting to build? What does that ideal us look like? And then we go to, and then I work with couples in conflict. And couples in conflict is what is the healing that needs to happen? How do we feel safe? How can we create more safety here? What are the big things that need to shift in order for us to want to be together again? So a lot of the time it's trying to work out what would make me want to be present in this relationship again, and just trying to build a roadmap to what that would look like. So
beautiful, yeah, thank you. Please, just how can people get a hold of you or get involved? What is coming up next?
Thank you. So I do have a couples retreat coming up that also embodies somatic work. So because I've realized that work to heal wounds needs to be done not through talk therapy. So the retreats that I host include somatic work, and I work with other co-facilitators. So that's coming up. The thing is that it's happening in October, 3, 4, and 5, and the cutoff date is actually the end of tomorrow. So if it is something that you're considering as a couple, then please feel free.
It's happening in Noordhoek, in a beautiful house in Noordhoek.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you're welcome to reach out. My website is TRA Coaching, or I'm the Relationship Architect. Also LinkedIn, or you can find me on Instagram.
Okay. And besides that, I mean, coaching, relationship coaching.
Yes, I do
2-to-1 and
coaching,
1-to-1.
2-to-1, 1-to-1. I have a book as well that you might find useful. It's actually a bit of a workbook, so you could do, it will help you to process all the stuff that we've spoken about, help you to figure out your deal breakers. It'll help you to figure out what are the skills you need to develop, help you to figure out where are you at with your intimacy challenges, and there's a lot of reflection and introspection. So
thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Drive home safe. Thank you for being here and being open to learning and empowering yourselves.